Welcome to Charity Therapy, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of the nonprofit sector and answer your burning questions. I'm your host, Jess Birkin, owner of Birkin Law Office, and I'm excited you're here. Imagine hanging out with me and my super smart, funny nonprofit expert pals. You get to ask them anything about your nitty-gritty nonprofit life and get their wisdom for free. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just strapping on your nonprofit boots, we're here to share stories and remind you you're not alone on this journey. So get ready to join the conversation and bring me the tough questions. I ain't scared. Ready to rock? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this episode of Charity Therapy. It's raining, it's cold, it's fall. Pumpkin spice latte is flowing from all Starbucks fountains, and I've got Megan here. It's a good day.
Hello. It is a great day, and it's a Friday, and we are just happy to be here. I will be putting on a blanket after this, though, because of the previously stated rainy fall vibes that are happening.
It is blanket weather.
It really is.
In Minnesota right now, it is blanket weather. I'm into it.
Blanket and a full pot of tea at all times is my plan. Okay, so the other thing that fall brings is election season.
Wah, wah.
Everyone's favorite topic.
We're not actually going to talk about politics on this episode, though.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. This is about nonprofits. We're not going crazy. But nonprofits sometimes want to talk about politics or have concerns about politics.
Yep.
And we work with lots of local nonprofits in Minneapolis. And some of the people that are involved might be like on the city council or thinking about being on the city council or in the state legislature and things like that. So we've had clients ask before about the rules around participating in their like local political scene. And I know C3 nonprofits have some rules. It's not a free-for-all. So Jess, what are those rules? What do we need to know generally?
Well, just sort of like high level. Nonprofits that are 501c3 public charities they're not allowed to do any political activity. They can't endorse candidates. None of the ads you're seeing this time of year are from a 501c3 public charity. Those are all 501c4 like PACs and super PACs. That's a different thing. We can't do that in the public charity sphere. So this time of year, you can talk about the issues, but everything has context and everything should be running past your legal counsel to make sure that you're not getting crosswise of some rules, because a lot of stuff is like, it depends, and it depends on what time of year it is, and it depends if this issue is actually being voted on right now. So I'm not going to give like a comprehensive digest for all of that, but just know that you can't endorse candidates. And that, I think, is what you're talking about, where this gets a little sticky with HR and how do we deal with employees who are also running for office or an elected official.
Jess, it's like you read the outline for this episode before we started. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So let's just jump into our listener question. Yes, you are. Okay, so person writes in and says, I'm the executive director of a small organization in my city, and I wanted to get your feedback on a decision I made. I'm hiring for a community organizer role, and we got several awesome applicants. One of the strongest applicants, it turns out, is running for public office in our local government. I turned them down for the interview once I found out their candidacy. My president told me after the fact that she thinks we could have hired this applicant, but I'm just really wary because I know we're not supposed to support political campaigns. Was I wrong to turn them down? What are the rules here?
Okay, this is a great question. It's not an easy issue, whether you're hiring or you already have someone who decides to run. Being a nonprofit, public charity, and an employer of a possible elected official, it just gets messy right away, right? So I understand the ED's trepidation, concern about that, because there is, especially with the role being a community organizer, you have somebody whose job is to go out and talk to the community, who's also running for local government and will actively be knocking on doors and talking to the community. It might be difficult, depending on what the issues are. Like, what are you organizing around? We don't know. There could be a very real possibility that it would be confusing or difficult for people to understand who that person is representing in that particular moment, right? Obviously, you can slap a branded t-shirt on them and they can be like, hey, I'm here for the nonprofit.
Yeah.
But also people that maybe start talking to them about their campaign or what, it just gets very blurry. When we have someone who's a client and they already have employed the person and that person decides to run for some sort of office, I usually recommend that they do a letter that makes it very clear that there are some boundaries that we need the employee to respect with relationship to their campaigning in particular, but even if they get elected. Now, of course, the other thing that we don't know here is is this a part-time position? Is it a full-time position? Could they even do the job if they were elected to the government role? As the employee, you kind of have to understand and address that in an interview. You're hiring for a part-time role. I am also running as a candidate for X role, which is expected to take 20 hours of my time each week. And I definitely have enough time to work for you. That, needs to be addressed.
Right. Yeah. Because otherwise they're just literally running for another job while they're applying to this one. It's the question.
You're I really want to work for you, but also I'm trying to get hired by the people over here. Right.
Yeah. As soon as I get this gig, I'm out of here. That's a real concern that is valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is valid. So some of the boundaries that would need to be respected would be that you don't get to use the nonprofit's resources for any of your campaign or your official duties. So you don't get access to our donor list, our member list, our whatever. You don't get to use your work email, your work phone number. You don't get to do this during work hours. And you need to make it extremely clear that you are not representing us when you are campaigning. The nonprofit needs to be careful, but you can do this. There are employees that run for office and it is doable, but there's a lot that we don't know here. That's just sort of it depends.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those situations where it's this was a completely reasonable response to be yeah, we don't want to deal with that. I am not going to hire this person. And it would be a completely reasonable response to be no, we can work with that. It just depends on a lot of the details here. And I think especially in a situation like this, where they are currently campaigning for their seat in whatever this public office is going to be, I can see it being that much more complicated because it is sort of now you're going to have to announce that you hired this person just as they are getting known for this campaign. So the timing there is a little bit fuzzier compared to when it's our longtime, executive director part-time has chosen to also sit on the city council or something. That is a little bit different in my mind, at least from a optics point of view, than it is for someone who is reason people know this is because they are running for office now, and now we're going to also hire them and elevate them further and announce it to our constituents or whatever that we hired them. So
yeah, and that's where I'm saying I think the fact that this role is for community organizer is extra complicated.
Yes.
If this was hey, you're going to be sitting at a desk in our office, maybe you interface with some people, but maybe not.
Yep.
That's a totally different thing.
Totally.
So just a lot of it depends on the circumstances. So, were you wrong to turn them down? No, I don't think it's discrimination or it's not a legal issue. It's just what's your comfort level? That's just too much agony and too much blech.
Right.
I don't want to deal with that. Maybe there will be a great candidate in a future iteration of this job or an additional position that opens up. Who knows if they're even going to succeed in their campaign. Facts can change and things can change, but there's not a hard and fast rule here. People in public office hold board seats all the time.
Totally.
They have part-time jobs because, frankly, public office doesn't pay very well.
Right. Especially if you're talking local office.
Local government, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's important to recognize that some nonprofits will always run into this because depending on what their mission is, it may be really hard to find folks who are, committed to the mission who aren't also deeply politically active. If this is a nonprofit that tries to get out the vote.
Yeah. Or they're women's reproductive health.
Exactly. Climate change, hot button issues where it's there are active political things happening right now. And a lot of the people who care about this mission will also care about the politics around it. It's sometimes impossible to avoid and keep it completely like separate in the way that this executive director might want to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, okay. Takeaways.
I got some takeaways. So first, the general one is 501c3 public charities cannot do political activity, meaning they can't support or oppose candidates or run ads for candidates or anything like that. They can, talk about issues, but they are not wading directly into political campaigns. There's a lot more there, but that's the bottom line. And because there's a lot more there, I will also say another takeaway is politics are weird. And if you are not sure about something, this is a great time to call legal counsel, because you don't want to get, this is a IRS regulation. So you don't want to put your tax exempt status at risk. If you need to be doing political activity, maybe you need to not be a C3. So that's another piece. And finally, if you do have an employee who does run for office or someone within the organization that is an elected official, it's just very important that you set certain boundaries with that person, that they can't use nonprofit resources or time to promote their campaign. So those are the big ones I've got. Anything else, Jess?
Yeah, I would just say, we're just making a little comment on the tip of a giant iceberg.
Yeah.
So... do not take any of this as dispositive about any other issue related to lobbying, politics, whatever, for nonprofits. This is not in any way exhaustive. It's just this one limited issue about employees. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, if you were just oh my gosh, I have someone who's running for office and this was the exact content I needed, please give us a 5-star rating online. We will love you forever. Send us a question, send us a story, send us a good time or a bad time. We would love to hear about it so that we can feature your story anonymously on the pod. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you, and I hope you have a big mug of tea and a rainy day in your future.
Bye.